We'll go ahead and start this meeting. This is a regular meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of Beaufort, sitting both as in its Planning Commission function and also in its design review capacity. And we'll begin tonight with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with justice. So our first item of business is always the review of our minutes, and we have two sets of minutes, one of our work session of September 8. And before I take a motion on it, does anybody have any questions, comments, changes? Okay.
On page
That is correct. All right.
page 3, typo at the bottom, public comment.
Okay. Yeah, one place had AUDs, another place ADU. Fix that. Anybody else? Also on page 3, in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph where it says Mr. Tomey referred to page 4. It says Planning Commission agreed to leave it as it is. I think leave it as it is, if you can correct that. Anyone else? Take a motion otherwise. Approve.
I move that we approve the minutes.
We're just doing the work session right now, so motion to approve the work session minutes of September 8, 2025 with those changes. There's our second. Any other changes or discussion? All in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, very good. And then we'll do, that motion passes, then the minutes of our regular meeting of September 15, 2025. Before I take a motion on that, does anybody have any corrections, additions, or any questions? Hearing none, and I don't have any. Do we have a motion on that? From any of you? I think everybody was, well, Benji, you weren't here, and Bill Suter weren't here, so from all right, it's been moved. Is there a second on that?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments, changes? If not, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, and those minutes are approved. We always have an agenda item related to any questions, comments related to military operations. Anyone have anything to say on that? Hearing none, we will go to our new business. And we only have this one case before us, which is one that we'll be hearing in our capacity as Design Review Board. And this is a public hearing. And so the order tonight on this is going to be our director, Kurt, will hear from him. And then before I take questions from planning commissioners, I'd like to go right to the applicant, because my own experience over presenting a couple thousand times on these things is that probably if you go to the applicant before we start asking questions, we'll probably get 90% of our questions answered. So I'll go with Kurt. You want to lead off? Okay. Introduce yourself and your position, planning commission, and then we'll hear from the applicant.
All right, good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Nick Navia, Planner 1. I'll be presenting the staff report for the item on the agenda, 119 Whitehall Drive. So this is a request for approval of a 2-story 4,500 square foot mixed use,
grams. And that,
mixed use building in Whitehall Park. It's been called Whitehall Cafe. So on screen, you can see the location of the property within the City of Beaufort zoning map. In purple is the T4N zoning district. So all of that you see is the Whitehall development. And then the little orange square in the middle is 119 Whitehall Drive. And so here's the site plan for Whitehall Drive. Before we get into that, I'll just quickly go over some of the general information in our staff report. So as previously mentioned, it's in the T4N zoning district. It's in the shaded X flood zone. The elevations on site are approximately 11 to 12 feet contours. The lot size itself is 6,620 square feet. On there, that triangle is part of the overall lot as well, just to clarify. Max lot coverage for that zoning district is 70% of the lot area. Frontage build out is between 60 to 85 maximum. Front setbacks are 0 to 15 feet. The side setbacks are 5 feet minimum, 0 feet if attached. If it's a corner alley served, it's also 0 feet. Rear setbacks of 10 feet minimum. The building height permitted is 4 stories maximum. This project being 2 stories is in compliance with that. The adjacent zoning, as we saw in the previous slide, it's all T4N. It's within the Whitehall Park development. And so just the quick background, the plan calls for a commercial space on the first floor with a 2-unit apartment proposed for the second floor. The building is lot 17 of Whitehall development. The applicant has been to 1 TRC meeting back on September 24th of 2024. And before we get into the slides, I'll just quickly go over the overall development plan, some of the other features indicated in our staff report. So as part of the overall Whitehall development plan, all the streets, parking facilities, the stormwater improvements, sewer stubs have already been constructed and installed for this property. The access onto 119 Whitehall Drive utilizes the existing access built for Whitehall Park development. It's a right in, right out from Sea Island Parkway, Highway 21. There's access from Meridian Road and Harborview Drive. And as part of the original submittal for the Whitehall development, the TIA is not required for this specific project. The compatibility with adjacent zoning. So the site is located near the main entrance road to Whitehall Park. So on the site plans, you can see that right in, right out at the north of the site plan, that's Sea Island Parkway. The entire neighborhood, as already mentioned, is zone T4N. The surrounding properties are a mix of single-family homes. There's townhomes, which you can actually see on the site plan in the top left corner there. There's some mixed-use buildings in the area, and the main open space, which is also to the left, to the west of 119 Whitehall Drive, is the park. And so in alignment with the conceptual plan for Whitehall Drive, which calls for traditional neighborhood design, which includes public open space, townhouses, and mixed-use buildings, this mixed-use building is, in compliance with that feature. Compliance with the Beaufort Comprehensive Plan, the area, so actually the comprehensive plan identifies the Whitehall development as general urban, which calls for, a mix of residential units, commercial, mixed-use buildings. The civic master plan as well, actually specifically mentions Whitehall Park, the Whitehall development, on page 131, section 6.6 of the civic master plan. And the plan illustrates the traditional neighborhood design. It calls for public open space, regional parks, greenway system. The plan illustrates one major entrance to the property marked by a civic or religious structure and a public green field defined by townhouses and mixed-use buildings. And so while the plans for Whitehall Drive or Whitehall Park, excuse me, have ultimately changed from that original intent, ultimately the mixed use building aspect has and, is, a feature and vision for Whitehall Drive. And so it complies with that. And so now to get into some of the slides we have here for Whitehall Drive. This right here are the materials and the colors for Whitehall Drive. It's not a full list of the materials, which is one of our recommendations at the end to provide a full material cut sheets for all the materials. But you can kind of see here, the roof material, the siding material, there's plank screening involved, the colors for the siding, for the shingles, for the railing, the columns. And so moving on to some of the elevations we have here. This is the north on the top and then the east side elevation of the plan. So again, as you can see, the first floor is the commercial space for a cafe, some sort of commercial development, and then with the two apartments on the second floor. Here's the south and west elevations. The south is at the top with the west on the bottom. And you can just kind of see some of the features of Whitehall Drive. So the next slides are some 3D renderings, which hopefully give a bit more perspective to what this will actually look like. So this is the northwest view of 119 Whitehall Drive. So this is essentially what you'll see as you're pulling in from Sea Island Parkway and that right-in access. This is the main entry. Here's another similar view. This is the north view instead of the northwest, but very similar to that last sheet. This next view is the southeast corner view. So this would be looking northwest. Out behind this would be Sea Island Parkway. This is kind of what you would see from that perspective. And so the next slides are just some street view pictures of the current lot and the conditions on there. And so this is the view from the southeast corner of the lot. Obviously, it's, the green field there. The trees are where that triangle kind of area on the site plan was outlined. That's where those trees are located. Most of those trees, I believe, are alive. I think there's one that's dead. But I think all of them are, except possibly the dead one, are proposed to be preserved and kept on site. So again, you're looking northwest towards Sea Island Parkway from this perspective. This is looking positioned at the southwest corner of the lot. So you're looking northeast, kind of towards the parking lot. So again, as you can see, there's already parking, all the surrounding features kind of already laid out for this project there in the distance. And we can get a closer look. This is, again, back to that southeast corner approximately of the lot. You're looking more directly north this time. You can see a little bit more of the parking lot. The most adjacent spaces right there are in view. And then this is a view of the overall parking lot as you drive into it. This is the southeast entrance onto the lot. Got a clear view of the parking lot there. Some tree plantings. And so again, here's just another perspective, a 3D rendering. And so moving into the findings of fact review. So as part of the new Chapter 7 criteria, it's just the 4 findings of fact that they meet all of them. So the first one is that the plan is consistent with the City of Beaufort Comprehensive Plan, Master Civic Plan. There's actually a small typo on the staff report itself. It says see page 3. It's actually supposed to say see page 4 of the staff report. But as previously discussed, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the civic master plan. The plan complies with all applicable requirements of this code. It's consistent with the T4N development standards, as well as the Whitehall development plan. There does exist adequate infrastructure transportation utilities to support the plan as proposed. Again, it's part of the overall Whitehall development plan. It ties into, automotive, pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. It's ultimately, the first development as you drive into Ladies Island from downtown Beaufort. It's adjacent to Whitehall Park, the Whitehall boat landing across the street, across the Island Parkway. It's close to the Beaufort High School, the Beaufort Pool, and Crystal Lake, as well as various other commercial, educational, and recreational amenities. And then finally, the plan conforms to the character of the neighborhood, considering location type, height of buildings or structures, and the type and extent of landscaping on the plan. And again, the location is ideal. It's one of the first buildings you see as you pull into that main entrance off of Sea Island Parkway. It's a cafe, it's a, commercial building. It's mixed use, which is part of the overall development plan for Whitehall. And so ultimately, our staff recommendation is final approval with just a few recommendations. So the first one is just for the applicant to note that all cementitious siding, trim and screening is to be a smooth finish and not the wood grain texture. The applicant is to provide cut sheets for all materials. As of right now, we've only got the lighting cut sheets. And then for the windows, there was an original recommendation to make the small windows on the east and west elevations above the kitchen sink. So if we actually go back to those elevations, you can see on the bottom here, kind of outlined in the black kind of dotted line, that kitchen sink window, it's got some paneling underneath. This is on the west elevation, and then same on the east elevation on that second story. Outline the dotted line, there's that paneling underneath those small windows. The original recommendation was to have the windows be taller so that the sill heights and head heights match the adjacent windows. The applicant, on account of that window being placed directly where the sink is, it was not necessarily ideal for them to extend it. So what they did as a revision was to add that paneling. After we saw that change to it, we recommend to ultimately just omit the paneling, mostly as an aesthetic choice. Feel it looks just simply better without the paneling, and then to just keep the windows as is. And that is all.
Thank you, Vic. What I'm going to do is, before we ask questions, I'm going to ask the applicant or its representative if they'd like to come up, and then we'll have our questions after that for both staff and for the applicant. So, and please give your name, your affiliation, your address.
Yes, sir. Jason Bruni, I'm the project manager from Court Atkins Architects. Thank you, Nick, for your staff report. Just a couple things to touch on. Just going through the staff recommendations. Certainly the siding and the trim would all be the smooth cementitious siding that you would typically see here. Cut sheets, yep, windows or roof materials, we can certainly provide all those. With regards to the window that we're looking at in the rendering, I don't know if the mouse will point to it, but we would agree that keep the window the same size because it is on the countertop, and just omit the paneling below and just let the horizontal siding just sort of flow through there. And I think that's so we agree with staff recommendation there. And then just the project in general, we wanted it to be just complement the neighborhood because there's a lot going on there right now, and to be of a residential scale. It is mixed use, so there is apartments on the second floor, but the first floor just providing nice coffee cafe shop for those that are in that area to be able to use. But again, just sort of the building form, the size, the detailing, just going back towards that sort of residential low country architecture to complement what's already happening in that area. And be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Patterson, have anything to say, or are you the only one that is speaking? All right, very good. All right, with that, then we will open it to first to the Planning Commission, and then we'll give a chance to anybody, members of the public. But commissioners, do you have anything either for Nick or for Jason? any of this.
It does not.
On the first floor to the left of the rendering, there's louvers of some kind. And
Uh,
the other renderings, they're wrapped around the building. What's under there?
Let me, does this point, Nick, or no? Oh, there we go. There's the pointer. Found it. I don't know if you can see that on your screen or not, but those guys right there, the umbrellas, is that what you're?
The umbrellas, to the left of the umbrellas, there's a series of louvers there. And then from the other renderings, I believe the louvers went around the back.
Oh, yeah, the screen wall. Yeah.
Screen wall,
Yeah,
okay.
the screen wall. That's correct.
What
Yeah.
is that?
So the screen wall we have, let me go to the plan for you. Second.
Yes, there it is. That's.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we have, oh, the plan's on there. There are HVAC units, behind the screen wall, and then also probably a cooler, for the cafe. So we wanted to, any of the sort of, again, HVAC units, those kinds of things, to screen those from the public view. So it's just horizontal screening is what that is.
Now, is there any dedicated parking for the residents on the second floor that live in the apartments? Do they have dedicated parking in the lot?
I don't know that, the answer to that question, if they get their own parking spot or if that's a,
Okay, so they get a parking spot or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Patterson, if can you answer for him? We like to have our answers to the questions by somebody at the podium. Jason, you can answer it if you want, or Mr. Patterson can come up.
If you could show them the site plan. Parking spaces behind the unit or for those apartments. Right there. For the, behind the triangle area. We're gonna do a bike stand, some mailboxes, things like that for the community.
Did you say you're gonna build a bike rack? Is that what you said?
Oh, we're planning on that. We
Okay.
think we need some mailboxes over there, or at least you come down to get some coffee, put your bike on the one.
Yeah.
Bike stands. It'll be on that. On that southwest corner there, southeast corner. Right as you come in that back drive. And the parking will be there and. But a lot of those other parking spaces are for this commercial area. So there'll be commercial spaces in the front, but we've got a certain percentage of those for our units. And for people that are using the coffee shop.
So that's a shared parking lot for the other outlots along Sea Island Parkway, is that?
That's
And you have
correct.
some kind of percentage that.
There is a
you're entitled to,
percentage
Yeah.
that we're paying for. Yes.
So to make sure I understand, will there be specific spots designated for the apartment dwellers only?
Well, we haven't got there. We do own those spaces there. I don't know if the commercial spaces have them up front, and then those are for us. I think it's 2 rows of them. I don't know the exact count, but I can certainly get that.
So you haven't answered my question.
Yes, there will be specifically for our people that are going to be renting those apartments.
That's all I wanted to know.
You got it. 2-bedroom.
And how many spots will be set aside for the 2 apartments?
I don't know for sure. I would imagine at least 2 per apartment.
Okay.
The site plan, the trees. I think like you have, quite a few nice trees that you're saving, and that'll be a really nice amenity for the project, which by the way, I think it looks really, really nice. Thank you for that design. Certified arborist, have you had somebody look at the trees and doing whatever needs to be done to make sure they?
Well, I'll get Mike Murphy out there. What I'm thinking is you'll go out there and drink coffee and we'll put some bird feeders out there, something to.
Well, you're going to a lot of trouble to save them, so just if there's whatever, the mycorrhizae, root pruning, blah, blah, that kind of thing, I would encourage that to happen, because you don't want to go through all this and then have to remove them. That would be unfortunate.
All right, but I tend that to be a amenity for the coffee shop.
Absolutely.
So we'll take
Yep.
care of it.
And the apartment.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyone else? Any planning
Respect-
commissioners?
With respect to having a cafe on the first floor and residents on the second floor, are you planning on providing an HVAC system that will filter out the first floor aromas for the second floor residents, protect them from the smells that'll emanate from the first floor? I mean, I know we all love the smell of coffee, but some people don't.
In the back, there are in the mechanical code when we get into the engineering drawings. If I'm too close to it. There we go. There are certain where you have intake louvers and exhaust, you have to be a certain amount of feet away.
Right.
So that will all have to be taken into account. We'll certainly have to have like a fire rated floor for fire ratings between the first and second floor and STC ratings. So all those things will be certainly,
This is a sprinkler building.
it is a sprinkler building because we have
Okay.
residents in it. Yes, sir.
Will the staff review those mechanical designs for the HVAC system so that it complies with this mixing commercial with residential?
Yes,
So there's no,
we will.
I mean, I know coffee smells good, but you know. All right.
I would
Go ahead. Jim.
stairs, I think.
Yes, there's not a, is there, I don't think there's a floor plan, is there? Nick? Well, yeah, so there's, like, so let's just go to the elevation. So on the rendering on the bottom right, that gate is how you would enter, and then you would go up the stairs. The stairs are screened behind that louver. And you come up, you kind of see if you go to the second floor, you can see the railing of the stairs sort of,
That's railing.
right.
Both units
So
access through that one.
at the one side, yes, that's correct,
There's only one access to the second floor for the
Correct.
resident.
correct.
You don't need two accesses for safety reasons?
You do not for this application.
Okay.
And the thought too is that we have a gate here for the residents, and then behind this column that the gate dies into, there's another, basically, it's screened so that folks that are going to the cafe can't just scoot up to the second floor as well, so.
Anyone else on the commission?
I would just ask staff to make sure that some of the specifics that we've discussed today that are not shown on the plans, like the bike racks and the location of the designated parking spots for the residents, are included in whatever kind of final plan is approved, because you can't see it now.
If you'd like to memorialize that, you can put it in a recommendation with your,
Well, let me
Okay,
ask
approval.
you, Kurt, bike racks are probably code required, are they not?
yeah, there's a code requirement for a certain number after, is it like 100 units, I think?
Anything that's
It's-
code
so-
required, we don't.
There'll have to be some in Whitehall.
Yeah.
But you could make that as a recommendation with your approval, and then we'll have it forever with this application. Yes, they do. The first floor is 40%, so yeah, it met those.
Well, and that's part of your regular TRC review, right? You always assure, Kurt, you and your staff that the code requirements are satisfied by the time it comes here, correct?
Yes, we do. I think, you can see the kind of the next
Right.
one, obviously the whole building is not gonna meet the 40%, but we did give them, where it's visible to the public, they're putting all the banks of windows in and doors. So you can kind of see that on all other sides, but the southeast hit the 40%, as you can see from the two slides here. So.
Those. uh, um, Are those real windows? Or
They will be real windows. Yes, they will be real.
And the purpose is to light up the attic or
mean,
where's
it's-
that light going?
I'd have to study a section through there, but, one, yeah, you just to light up the attic but the real reason is to give it an architectural feature in the gable. You want to have something in the gable. Sometimes it's a vent, sometimes it's a window, so, but we chose the window in this case.
All right, if there are no other questions from the commission, we'll see if there's anybody that's here from the public that has comments or questions. And if no one here has any questions or comments, is there anybody online that we need to hear from?
No, sir.
Is that a yes or no?
No.
No.
Right.
Right. Anything else from the commission? Oh, hearing none, we'll go into business session then and to termination. Okay, thank you.
You.
All right, commissioners, that public hearing portion is closed and anybody have anything they want to say before we take a motion from somebody? Any comments on this? I'll just begin by saying I think it's a beautiful building. And by all accounts, it complies with all of our code requirements. And apparently the applicant is acceding to all of the requests of staff in its staff report. So it looks like it's in order for a decision. So we can either have additional comments, questions, or we can take a motion. Anyone have a motion?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to, let me see here. Motion to approve Whitehall Cafe 11-9 Whitehall Drive site plan with staff recommendation and additional recommendations such as locating the bike racks, working with an arborist to protect the trees, and for the city to review the HVAC design.
All right, we have a motion.
What about parking assignment? You mentioned the bike rack. What about the parking assignment?
Oh, locating the bike racks as well as the parking assignment.
And mailboxes?
And also locating the mailboxes.
I don't think we need to have all that in our motion. You know, staff does take care of some of those and those that are code required. If you want to have them in there, I won't object to them, but what is it about the mailbox that you need? They have to have a mailbox.
Well, if you may recall in the discussion about bike racks, Mr. Patterson said that they have to put some mailboxes somewhere and that's going to dictate in part where the bike rack is. And so there's just some details on the site plan that aren't on there right now. That's
Right.
what that was
And,
about.
well, we're not asking to see them. We're just asking to remind staff to make sure that they're put on the plan as you would. Okay.
I want to make sure it's in a safe location.
All right, very good. Do you all understand the motion then, or is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Murillo, seconded by Commissioner Suter to approve with those various conditions of approval. Any questions or comments on that motion and second? Hearing none. All in favor signify by raising their hand. All opposed, and that passes unanimously. Very good. Thank you. Look forward to seeing it.
Okay.
Excellent, okay. Well, now we're going to go in and talk a little bit about 2, 3, and 4 at the chapters 2, 3, and 4 at the business session. Kurt, if I recall correctly, you gave us sort of a summary pretty quickly, went through it pretty quickly of all three of these. And so rather than go through the summary again, unless there's something brand new that you want to bring to our attention, I thought that it would be a good idea if we could kick off kick off what will become a more in-depth editing of these chapters at our next business session by us taking or proposing questions to you and making some generalized comments on each of these chapters and going in order of chapters 1, 2, and 3, and also going in the order of the way you've laid them out here on these summary sheets. But before I start that up, would you like to add anything to what you gave us at the work session?
Sure. So on your, right before you there should be just a little one-page proposed schedule with the meeting times. And on that schedule, the first work session, I kind of listed the three things I think that we kind of did discuss after that overview last time at the work session, which included, I think your request that we build in kind of vernacular or low country design standards in chapter 4 under each use type or each building type. So we've already met a few times with our with the city architect, I guess that's what he's called, with Jeremy and Maria and staff to kind of go over that. We've been looking at some codes in the area, and we're kind of both working on making some proposals to that, hopefully by your November meeting. Might be a little late because obviously we're relying on them, but hopefully we'll have them to the next work session. But that's one thing we were proposing to kind of add. We talked about lot diversity. I think there was some concern about doing it for the whole city, and I think we'll probably have some revisions just to look at specific types or uses only for those kind of lot diversity standards. So I think that probably makes some more sense. So we'll bring that back to you. And then some of the use types and zoning types, I think we'll also have some changes to that, but those were kind of, that we'll have at the work session. So those were kind of some of the big picture things that you talked about, but otherwise you have a schedule before you that, you know, hopefully we can have that more detail that you discussed at the work session for the next session. And we can answer any questions and maybe prepare that for the next session that we have here and get that all teed up for, you know, November, which I believe is the first Monday, is it November 3rd? And then the December session, we can maybe just go over everything for the work session because your November meeting already has 4 things on it. They all came at the same time, unfortunately, but some of them are pretty major, so expect that to be a long meeting. I'm just gonna tell you that ahead of time. So actually some pretty major projects that have been going on all year, and they all decided to do it now. So you
Kurt,
will not
can I
have
just
time.
Ask a question about that. I mean,
Sure.
having 4 items on the agenda seems like a lot for one meeting. Are they all definitely going to go? Can they be split up?
I mean, we have some discretion to move them around. I guess, you know, it's, if you feel like 4, you know, the 4 projects we have the middle school renovation. We have a new, hospital/emergency room. We have a new, hotel, and we have a new apartment complex.
That sounds like an awful lot for
Sounds
one
like it
session.
is an awful lot, and they've all been in review. The hotel's been in review for a year, so is the apartment complex. Of course, they, you know, there's been time between their TRCs actually submitting everything. The school district, obviously, you know, is a public thing that they've been in review for 6 months. And then the hospital, you know, it's probably been the least, but they did apply they were the first to apply for this meeting. So yeah, so we can try to maybe move one off of it.
My view is that we should let the people go forward as quickly as we can, and it's up to us to some extent to, you know, try to think through our
Okay.
questions and ask the important things and not sweat the small stuff. And if we have to go later, we can. But I would hate to have us, given the time that some of these take, and as you said, some of them been in a review process for a while. I think we should give it a shot to try to handle them all at one time and put them off.
When you talk about 4 projects, what status are we going, what status are they in?
Okay, one is as a sketch plan.
One is that?
That's the apartment complex. So that'll be a little more conceptual in nature.
Well, and remember that on the sketch plan, from the changes that we made to the code now, we're only giving, if I recall correctly, because sketch plan is part of of the subdivision process. is
Right,
what
it's
it
not
is.
a vested
And
right.
so we're
getting-
not voting on that night. We're just giving them some recommendations and they take them forward or not. So we don't have to give the same degree of fine tuning on that. It's just conceptual things.
Except that historically, apartment complex reviews of any kind generate huge amounts of public interest and public
I don't know
comment.
whether
And
you have a
um,
sense of that yet or not.
Uh,
We're making it,
Yeah.
it's a very preliminary process now, the sketch plan. We've changed that process. So we also have the ability to, everybody come back, they're gonna be coming back for an actual review, an up or down vote. This is not an up or down vote.
Yeah, I think we'll probably put that last on the agenda because we are providing notice to everyone within 500 feet now. So that's new. I don't think that was this meeting.
Well,
the
and.
first time to do that,
Let me just
but-
say to this, I think that's a good thought there, Bert, but I think generally speaking, if you can, is put the items on the agenda that are likely, you don't always know this, but are likely to be the least controversial up early so that those people don't have to sit through the long hearing at the end. So if you anticipate that something's gonna be long drawn out with a lot of people, put that toward the end, so something that can go faster. Now, you can't always get that exactly right.
I think we have an idea. I have an idea and between the three of us, what, and the other 3 are final site plans. They've been in the process, I mean, whether they're controversial or not, I don't know. A hotel, a school and a emergency room, so.
Which hotel is this? This is over on Trask?
It would be off of 170. I guess I'm not telling you anything that won't be noticed, so. So, yeah. But yeah, we'll have that, I guess, but those would all be finals, so you'd be, hearing their final site plans.
so just a suggestion as far as the order goes, I would suggest we put the emergency room first, the school next, the hotel third, and the apartment last.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree. I was probably gonna put the school first, just because they're
Do it,
public.
I think either way there.
service, but otherwise, I would completely agree.
a good idea.
Yeah, so you're not gonna have time in the November session to do any discussion like you're doing tonight. And then your December session, I was thinking, really just go through everything and make sure all the i's and t's are dotted. Hopefully, we're at that point. And then, you might table something else might come in. So your December meeting, regular meeting, I'm not sure what that'll look like right now, right? The apartment complex could come back, you could have tabled one of these 4 or 2 of these 4, we just don't know. So we'll just kind of keep that open right now. And then, you'll have 2 meetings in January with the hope that we could be far enough along. But if we're not, we can always go to February or March. That's kind of the plan right now, that we'll have the work session. And then, did you want to have the work session on is it the 13th? I should just open to my, or is it the 5th? Is that right? Is it the 5th or 12th or 5th or 6th or 13th? I can't,
Where?
of January.
That 5th or 12th.
Yeah, okay, 5th and 12th. So I think if you just wanted to think about that, because, the 5th, a lot of people still could be out of town. I just wanted to make sure.
And the 19th is Martin Luther King holiday, so we gotta,
We'll have to
Okay.
change the schedule in December. We'll have you'll set the schedule for the new year. So that'll obviously not be the 19th. Thank you.
So when you say on January 19th or the 20th, whenever it is, you're talking about a formal vote on chapters 2, 3, 4?
That was kind of a proposed schedule for you.
Okay.
Just to give us some structure so we can stay on track. But it seems like this is going a little easier than the other sections. So that's just my optimism perhaps, but it does seem like it's a little more straightforward than what we were dealing with before. That's the goal. And then, if you want to have a holiday meeting or holiday event, you can do that too. We can probably start thinking about that if you want to do that, maybe decide in November about that. So, does that sound good to everybody?
Thank you. How about as to these chapters before we start in them, chapters 2, 3, and 4? Is any of what you've given us today new from what you had previously handed out? In the
No, we didn't have time.
Thing?
It's just been
Hmm?
like 4 days since we had the meeting. No, we didn't have time to, but we did meet twice with Metters to talk about it. So we're in the process of developing some changes. Don't have them yet.
All right, I think that it would be good to get started having some discussion tonight, because I do think that when you bring the low country design standards, for example, there's gonna probably be a lot of talk about that. It'll be new things for us to look at and so forth. So why don't we start with chapter 2 and use your outline, and I'll just remind the commissioners that the way that Kurt at least is proposing this is what he's done here is on these summary sheets is he's given us the exact sections where he has made redlined changes. And so I think the idea is that we try to concentrate on those redline changes, and then if in the process of going through the chapter and those redline changes, there are some other things that we on our own decide that we want to take a look at or question or change, we have the ability to do that. When we went through chapters 7 and 9, I think we did it a little bit differently. What we did is we started with the first word, and then we went to the second word and the third word, and we went through absolutely everything. And that's one of the reasons it took a long time. Now, not necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think if we did that again with these chapters, we might be on this until easily this time next year.
Well, chapters 7, 5, 7, and 9, we were making major foundational
We were.
structural changes.
We were.
It changed all the chapters. So I don't think we're doing that with this. We're keeping the
Right.
core of the form-based code and
And
just updating it essentially. So.
And because that authority is with the planning commission to make those changes in the end, if we want to recommend changes, we're free to do that. But I'm just suggesting as we go through this, we go through these outlines and the red line changes related there too, and try to deal with those, and then only go to other wording changes if there's something that, is compelling that we see within these chapters that we need to look at. So with that said, I guess I would say that we start with your first section there, 2.4.1, and which is the transect-based district standards, and see if anybody has any questions on those first two items, maximum lot coverage or frontage build out. And I do have a question about the frontage build out to T4N minimum frontage build out. Where you wrote there, Kurt, you said is revised to 60%. Previously, it was unspecified, and I see that as a red line change there. So let me understand that. When you say the minimum frontage build out, are you saying that on 100? We'll just take a 60-foot wide lot in a T4N district. You're going to have lots that go from probably 50 to 60 to 100, and I kind of counted out, stepped off some of the lots in the T4N neighborhood where I am. And it seems to be that there's no uniform lot width there. So are you suggesting that the minimum build out is 60%? So what are you saying on a 60-foot wide lot, it would be a minimum of 36-foot build out?
Well, it's actually how much building is in the width.
So you're talking about
If it was 100 feet, there'd be 60 feet or 36, 60. So,
so is that the maximum amount or the minimum amount?
the minimum. So, there was a maximum before, or there's a maximum in there, but so the minimum is, you have to have at least 60% of the building in that frontage area. But you don't have to take.
Is there do we have a maximum on that as well?
I believe when we go to the code section, because it should be in
Look
there.
at that.
And it does have a frontage bill.
85% max, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking, it says in T4N, frontage build out, 60% min, 85% max.
that's on the current code.
Right.
Yeah, so when you said you're changing that, it does show 60, 85.
Yeah, that must be my error. I think, yeah, I don't know why I put that down there, but we were changing T5 UC, which
But
was,
T5UC is what's changing.
it was, going from 100%, I apologize. If you remember, we added like a 10% open space requirement for T5 UC. So I thought we might need to reduce that minimum lot coverage, maximum lot coverage, but we don't have to. But just to give a little bit of natural area and then increase the frontage build out to 75% from 60% in T5 UC. So I'll leave it to my architectural.
Yeah, and I think there's a typo too on that sentence where it says T5UC, it is revised to 60% minimum, previously 75. I think that's backwards. It's revised to 75%, previously 60%.
Yeah, it should be struck through. If you see the red line, 60%, yeah.
So the T5UC is backwards, you're saying?
On that sentence anyway,
Oh, on the sentence.
on that first page.
Oh, now it's 75 and it
Yeah,
previously was
apologies.
60.
Man,
Is
I really.
that what you're saying, Benji?
Right, yeah, it's 75 now, previously 60.
Yeah.
Which I think makes sense. Because they're trying.
And then I think Ms. Anderson brought up the T3S district. We probably need to change, the lot width, we did reduce down to 60 feet. I think we might have had that, but
I'm just curious, when you look at that chart, why is it, let's just see. In the T4N, it has lot size not applicable. I know that's just the way it is, just,
the T4, T5, and the T5 districts,
the T4N, T5, why is there a not applicable lot size?
that's a good question. I think because those are very form-based standards and the idea was that lot size shouldn't be the, I guess, the determiner of basically density anymore. It's urban in nature,
It can be anything.
could be anything.
10
So it
foot
could be
wide
like
lot.
1,000 square, if you could fit a cottage or something, or even a commercial building in 1,000-foot
Charleston
lot,
style House could be in a
Could,
narrow
yeah.
lot.
or like an
So
18.
that was probably one of the biggest
Mhm.
changes that allowed more infill development in these more urban neighborhoods. So, yeah, there's no minimum lot size.
So the idea is even though there's no minimum, practically speaking, you're not gonna have a 10-foot wide lot.
Well, you could, if it,
But it has to, right, it has to be
Unlikely.
buildable.
That's what I'm just asking, yeah, just
Yeah.
practically speaking.
Right.
Nobody's-
practically speaking, but
It's
you know,
required, you gotta deal with that and
Yeah.
tree
okay.
preservation but it's not a.
Okay,
but you could do a 16-foot wide, like row home, or 18-foot wide. That's very typical, right? So,
So
and then the T3 are suburban kind of.
Right.
these vernacular standards that you're developing, are they going to be applicable in all zones or just in certain ones?
Well, we can talk about that, but we already have all of the zones kind of design requirements, but we were thinking of adding them to the building standards of chapter 4, the specific building standards, kind of each type, and then doing as more of an à la carte type of method where you don't, some things you have to provide, but you wouldn't have, it's not, it won't be as prescriptive, so you can kind of pick a few. That's what we were thinking of doing. but we
Now,
have to
those are in
develop them.
chapter, those will be in
Chapter 4, yeah.
I just,
But
think-
that is to be developed still, so that's what we're developing.
So I just stylistically, when you print these things out, when you have a chart like this one that goes on multiple pages, it's very helpful if you reproduce the headings at the top of each page, meaning the districts. So that when
Yeah.
people are looking and they read down, similar to freezing headings on an Excel worksheet. I mean, it's just, it gets confusing to not have that information on every page.
I don't disagree with you. It's just that is what's in Muni code and the code right now. So that's when we do it, this is how it comes up. So if you pull it up on the code, this is what comes out. So I mean, when you are on Muni code, it will allow you to basically download the chart itself as a chart only. So you wouldn't have to scroll like you're doing on the pages, but it would be challenging, I think. So maybe that makes sense. So the formatting issue is really from when it goes to Muni code, basically the table you can download itself. So it wouldn't be a problem. I think it's just when you print it out, it becomes a little more difficult to read. So hopefully that makes some sense.
But it makes sense, but I do think that if we're going to be having a paper code, it should be readable. And especially in the process of us reviewing it, it's helpful to have readable paper because we're not doing on computers looking at Municode. We're looking at text on paper. And that's how we're making our recommendations to council.
I'll see if we can add the tables above each one to the next meeting.
I just stick with chapter 2 and then go to 3 and 4. We'll get to those in a second. On continuing on your little outline here, does anybody have any questions on if we've done 2.4.1? Does anybody have anything on the accessory building placement to understand what Kurt is suggesting there?
I did have a question, just sort of, why has it been a problem that the detached garages have to be set back 20 feet from the street and moving them up? You had said, I think, that there was examples it's problem, and I agree if there's problems need to be solved, but I was just interested in an example.
It's come up a lot, actually. in
Is
the
it
last-
because of tandem parking? You want to be able to park 2 cars in a driveway?
But we're
Well, this
bringing it
is from
way
the front
closer.
No,
facade, not from. the
No,
back.
this is, from really the front, so it's come up especially in the historic district, but, really all over, because there's some, small lots or older lots that, are somewhat constrained by space and, 20-foot back, especially for corner lots, is become a real challenge, so the double frontage lot. You know, that's the best corner lots and the historic lots and yeah, and trees have come up. Christopher, you want to add some? Go ahead.
So many times we find lots that are not really deep, right? So they're not deep enough. And if you have a 25 feet minimum depth behind the front facade, you're gonna more likely encroach into trees that are usually in the back of the yard. And many times specimen landmark trees that are affected. That's number one. So it's the depth of many lots in the Mossy Oaks, the suburban lots in Beaufort are not the deepest. And then you've got a lot of trees, of course. So a lot of times we would like to see it rather the tree preserved than having that 20 foot setback behind the front facade.
Right, that
So,
was pushing the
and-
garage in back of the house. So this, and this
Yeah.
garage would be beside the house, more or less.
But
Or could be. it
And,
could
and
be.
in T3S, if you look at in the chart, it's already 5 foot. So we decided, so we might as well just adjust it to the 5 foot minimum that's already in T3S and kind of do that the same for T3N and the T4HN. But it's going to remain 20 feet in the T4N.
I mean, could this potentially make neighborhoods feel too suburban with garage doors.
Well, here's just a thought, Benji, is, you know, if we're gonna have this standard on the detached, I think that some of us have talked before about having that 5-foot setback on the attached as well, so that we don't have so many of these houses that are, where you end up having a house attached to a garage.
That's already in there.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's in the current code.
is it in the code that all houses, all single-family residences have to? Because that doesn't seem to be the case in some of these. new-
Attached garage slash carport setback from front facade in T3S 5 feet, T3N 5 feet. And the other ones you can't even.
Well,
really do.
considering this, if you go to chapter 4, I guess I did think about this, and I know Christopher's been dealing with a lot of it, but if there was going to be some additional design standards, so if you looked at single-family detached houses for the whole city,
Yeah,
it says garage doors shall not extend across more than 30% of the street-facing facade of the primary residential structure. Side-loaded garage are allowed, reduced 10-foot setback in T3 districts. Maybe I should put that in there, but it's just too hard to fiddle with that graph, or table. The thought is that basically you could just do a 1-car garage. But I mean, I think to your point, you know, maybe 20 feet, maybe 5 feet's not enough back to provide relief. But with chapter 4, if you agree with that, then you're limiting it to basically, you know, only 1-car garage in the facade. I mean, it's just something that's come up a number of times, I would say, in the last year. And, you know, I want to go with 5 feet, which the other districts are. We were just trying to provide relief to people that have come in, and it's come up a lot, so.
Do we need to change the note, the footnote 5? If we change the anything in the row number 6?
which page are you on there, Kim?
I'm on page 11 of 73. I'm talking about the detached garage door carport setback from front facade. So we made a change to 5 feet, but then there's a note 5 to that, which applies to that row. In addition to the setback requirements listed above, garage carports would face a public right of way, except for rear alleys, shall be set back a minimum of 20 feet from that right of way.
So I can speak on that. So that note, that's from the right of way. So I think the idea is still to keep that in place. Whereas in the actual chart, it's from the facade of the house, which is
Right.
already set back a certain distance from, depending on the zoning district. So this is just, because that 20 foot is in addition to the 5 feet, you know, from the right of way, so they don't conflict.
And that 20 feet, Kim, was,
T3S has a 20-foot minimum setback, so it shouldn't.
and that addresses what you raised a few minutes ago, Kim, which had to do with making sure when you have cars stacked in a driveway, they're not then sticking out over the right of way, over the sidewalks and so forth.
It's something we can think about. You know, the goal of the form-based code is to prevent the suburban, you know, front-loaded garages, the 2-car, the 3-car, especially the 3-car garage, that you see in like a track-built home, like you know, like when you think of a track builder where they build the 2 or 3, where the garage is basically most of the facade, right? I think that's the goal of this, but these are for detached garages only. And with chapter 4, we were also further reducing it down to 30% of the facade. So the garage could only really be 1 car moving forward. But anyway, you know, if it's
Practically
20
speaking,
feet.
practically speaking, there aren't many people who can have 1-car garages.
Probably not.
And I don't think we want to have a regulation that puts people in that position.
Well, it would
Then
be
they
just
just-
in the front facade. It wouldn't be to the rear, but we can talk about that as we get to chapter 4 too.
Yeah,
So that would be something we want them to do, a side loaded or a rear garage, so.
the rear garage that then the driveway gets larger in the back. And then
That's,
part of the garage can extend beyond the facade of the house.
that's right.
Yeah.
And we already restrict the driveway to be, and the front driveway can only be 12 feet in width. It's in chapter 5 or chapter 7, that you already, so that kind of restricts the, you know, when we're talking about these track built homes, you'll see the 3-car garage, the 2-car where you have a 24-foot or wider.
Right.
access point from the road, which you can see in the newly built subdivision here. You know, you can see some of those kind of circumstances, so. But anyway, so this was just to kind of address some of these things, but you know, we can address it in a different way. You know, we could have a footnote, you know, maybe consider trees or just for corner lots. I mean, we can do it, or we can not make this change. We were just seeing a lot of it come up. And
I think, sorry.
So, go ahead.
I think my, maybe where I'm leaning towards is, me personally, is T3N could change to 5 feet for detached, since attached is already set back 5 feet. But maybe keep the T4HN at 20 for the detached. Where I am in my head.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I understand.
okay,
So we'll come back to that with our actual
We'll,
changes, you know.
One more thing, if you don't mind, to the vice chair's point about the attached garages on page 11 there, number 6, it's not proposed to be changed, but I guess just going forward, would like to make sure that that provision is, let's say, enforced. If that, let's say, because production home builders, that something that they seem to like to do, and
yeah, and they got a variance, I think, in like 2022 or 2021. I'm not sure, that one subdivision for the whole subdivision.
To do
so,
what was the variance for?
the garage and the, driveway width. Yeah,
Where they then had wider driveways than the code allowed, and they
Yeah.
were allowed to bring the garages forward.
but that I don't want to name the subdivision, but they got variances from the ZBOA on the whole thing there. So.
they did
I
go
don't
to
know.
CBOA.
Yeah, that's what I think you had told us some time ago when we asked about that, and
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
and because our statute in South Carolina is just gives such credible authority to ZBOA. I don't know that we can do anything of that with that, other than, you know, if staff can work on ZBOA to not be quite so lenient on things. I mean, it's supposed to be in exigent circumstances, not just because a developer isn't satisfied with what the planning commission let them do and what the code lets them do, and then they go to ZBOA and they get a variance on every lot in the subdivision. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I think.
even have a code to begin.
I mean, I think they've been following staff recommendation since I've been here.
Yeah.
I think they're good, but you know, I think the staff at the time was recommending this, so pretty strongly. So
Yeah,
the staff was telling them to bring it and bringing it for them, so. I don't know. And I mean, they're pretty much almost built out now, so.
yeah.
But that, as far as you know, is not gonna, we're following this now, what it's.
We're following this now, but they got variances and, you know, we can't take them away, so. Is there anything else on this table that you all think should change or will be revised? You know, there's a lot of stuff here. Heights especially are always controversial, so.
Can we go to the lot diversity part, 2.5.9? This is something brand new, an idea of yours, right, Kurt?
Yeah, it comes originally, I think, from another community in another state, but yeah, I think from listening to you, we'll probably make some changes to it. So.
My only thing about it is, and I understand where you're coming from, and I think the idea is good. In most of the places they're talking about this, they're talking about, you know, just allowing it where the codes didn't allow that kind of diversity, where a single family district is a single family district, and, you know, there's no opportunity for two unit dwellings or much of anything else. You're talking about mandating it, and I'm not saying any more today, other than just wondering whether in the T3N district, it's practical to think whether any of these developers are gonna want to do mixing multifamily within the community like that, because you may end up finding that you got lots that'll never sell.
Yeah, I think it actually worked really well in a few communities. But this was a different circumstance where there's plenty of land and so not really need the, but the idea is, you know, it scales well for both ways, is that, you know, like if you have an affordable housing project, then you got to do something that's a little higher. And if you have a, you know, just a single family or a high-end subdivision, then you got to do something that's a little more affordable. So it scaled both ways. It was working pretty good, but yeah, I can see your point, but the goal is that maybe we'll just use a district or two, like the T4N, I think, in the city is kind of it's kind of where I was thinking of using this is, it's kind of, it's got a lot of, it's in a, T4N is located in a lot of transitional areas, is the best, that are not really urban, but we're wanting them to urbanize. And, you know, but it allows a lot of uses that are, you know, to do just one use there is probably not good for you know, as we're building out, we want a mixture of uses, right? So that's what this is intended to do, is to create a mixture of uses as the city builds out, but and a mixture of price points, so.
If we're,
So,
you know, I like the direction that that's headed, but could we also think of more than building types? Because if right now we have single family and then 2 and 3, and then multifamily, which could be up to 36 units per build, you know, of those apartments we're getting now. But again, if we thought of other building types, whatever their names would be, similar to what Port Royal and other people are doing, let's say I'm missing the mansion apartment or whatever, that would be 4 to 6 units. Well, and I mean, that would be a different building type. Then you can have one, you know, the bigger mansion apartment, 6 to 12, or whatever it is, and then have different thresholds. They'd still be multifamily, but going from single family to a 36 unit building is a lot. And so if we could sort of fill in, scale it, or, you know.
Yeah, so that's, I think we're gonna work on that, but chapter 4 had the different building, it was separating the building types, but yeah, I think this was a draft idea that
Yeah.
we need to work on.
Yeah.
So. But it's different, right? I don't think the lot diversity, building diversity, I think is being done in South Carolina, but this is kind of a unique thing. I'm
Yeah.
bringing along, so.
I wouldn't limit it to T4N because I think some of the issues come up in the RMX as well.
Yeah, RMX and T4N, I think, is both of those districts. Actually read my mind. I
Yeah.
don't know if I put that there. But, you know,
And T5UC, I don't know if that's,
no, I think that
that would be.
maybe we
more-
don't need to do.
Yeah, because
we're
that's
not
already dense.
really seeing any
Yeah.
one type development, and we almost don't want them to do multiple types, right? So.
I guess I'd also like to maybe consider sort of and/or the traditional neighborhood overlay, whatever that is. You know, right now that's only mandated at, I think, 100-acre projects, and it's recommended for smaller ones. But that would be sort of, that's trying to do sort of accomplish similar goals. So we could look at that, maybe tweak that, or blend the two even.
This is a good thing to bring up. First, I'll just say, I completely was going the direction that, you know, T4 and in RMX for the last one. So we'll work that out and we'll kind of make some changes to this. And then I think to Ms. Anderson's comments that we have this great overlay district, but no one's using it. And I think we need to figure out, how do we incentivize someone to use this? What changes do we need to make? Do we need incentives? Do we need like breaks on stuff to use it? We just need to think about it because no one's using it right now. So
Lower the threshold, because 100-acre site in Beaufort, that's,
almost non-existent.
yeah, right, few and far between. So maybe just lowering it a little bit. Seems like the two, your proposal and what that's outlining are very similar, so sort of working them in concert would be ideal.
Yeah, I had to ask at that last work session if there was any way you could provide us information about, you know, the development opportunities that exist within Beaufort city limits as they exist today, you know, and the sizes are there any 100 lot? Are there any 50 lot, parcels left? Are there, how many 20 lot parcels are there left? Or parcels that could be assembled into developments of those sizes. Now, somebody said at that meeting, well, the boundaries are gonna perhaps expand through annexation, so we have to also have a code that provides for that. And I agree that's true, but I think probably most important is just to know, for example, what the situation is today, whether, if we're gonna have some 100 acre standards or 50 acre standards. I mean, are we even talking about what is the reality that exists today? And if you could provide that, that would be really helpful.
I can do in a week.
I don't know how easily that is done,
I
but,
think we can figure it out, yeah. We can figure it out.
and if you could even show us on a map where those exist, then that just helps us, because then we can kind of look at those and say, well, we might like to see these developed out in this particular manner. I didn't realize that there were parcels like that.
Or understand that there's so few opportunities, it's sort of not worth spending a lot of time on certain things. But
Right.
maybe we really need to concentrate on those 20 to 30 acre parcels because there's so many of them.
Yeah,
So what do we want to see happen there?
Yeah, I think that goes with the previous discussion. Definitely do that.
Libby, is there anything available from the county that might assist in identifying future annexation development opportunities?
Well, I mean,
I think the Northwest, I mean, not the Northwest, but the NERPIC,
or the regional plan
Northern Regional
project.
Plan, is pretty much has the area that Port Royal can annex and the area that Beaufort can annex, so we can,
In the
that.
Beaufort can go all the way out to the Whale Branch. I mean, that's the growth area. And then on Ladies Island, really, most of Ladies Island, but not St. Helena and that kind of thing. Now, the challenge is it doesn't seem that the future land use map in the comp plan anticipates that. It doesn't designate zoning or land use categories. It doesn't say mixed use village or rural residential or whatever. It doesn't address anything outside the current city limits at the time. So that is a dilemma. I'm sure the
it's a
planning
dilemma.
commission may be already faced when somebody comes in for annexation and it's like, well,
Yeah, we've faced
how many
it
guidance? So
multiple
that would be
times.
something I think in the comp plan update that probably needs to be.
Which we'll be working on once when we finish the code, so if you, ones that you want to leap into the comp plan update, we'll get this code over with soon. So,
Kurt, remind me, where in these code sections is the matter of compatibility with surrounding area addressed?
I believe that's is it in chapter 4, I believe, it's in chapter 4 is like the harmony.
Okay, because I know that at least on the design review board, compatibility with surrounding area was problematic because of the county, some counties adjoining county property. And so I think we want to make sure that we put some language in any, or suggest some language that might help with that problem of.
Yeah, and there was some added language when we get to the chapter 4, but we can maybe do, and the lot diversity thing was well, the idea is to not allow like enclaves of like high density where there's nothing else there. So it's just another way to kind of prevent that from happening. So, or whatever, an enclave of an apartment when everything around it, even those T4 annas.
Well, there seems to be some tension between the notion of compatibility with surrounding area and diversity. And I think we need to make sure we're, setting the lines where we really want them.
Yeah, there's some extra stuff in chapter 4, but the lot diversity would be part of that, so. Next, I think is the height issues, so the height transition, everybody like that? That's the 75 feet thing.
let's just see here a second. Oh, the transition height. section 2.6.6, what you're referring to, Kurt? Height?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of ties to the conversation we're just having, is that we have a lot of urban form-based code districts in transitional areas, or we also have like T5 districts next to T3 districts. And, T5 allows and T4 allow 4 or 5 stories, and your T3 is a one, typically a 1-story, 1 to 2 stories, with probably 50% or more as 1 story. So that obviously creates tension, right? And the height transition areas to kind of relieve some of the tension, so you wouldn't have a 4-story building looming over your 1-story house.
No, I thought all those changes made good sense to me.
But if there's any, we can make.
Me too.
And so I tried to find a city, because this came up, I think, when we were doing the townhouses especially, but it came up even before because we had a citizen and citizens that were very concerned. So
Hmm.
I was just trying to find other cities that did this, and this is what I found. I found a pretty decent one. So I was taken.
That was also a concern of us on the planning commission as well. And like I said, I looked at it, it seems to make sense.
All right, well, so
Yeah.
any other comments? And then overlay standards, which I think,
Just moving those to chapter 4.
as she was discussing, some of the overlays is just not really being used, so how can we make them be used? But yes, and then otherwise move them to chapter 3, which is zoning, because they're a zoning overlay, not a
Remove
lot
the 3.
overlay.
Okay.
Actually, they have different lot standards, but they're still a zoning overlay, so. I mean, we don't have to, we could just leave them where they are, so if it's more of a hassle, I don't.
Well, you were just suggesting they be taken lock, stock and barrel and moving them to a different.
Yeah, I just thought they made more sense in chapter 3, because you got like PUD standards are there, and I know Libby, you might want to talk about that a little bit, but we just moved them all to chapter 3. Well, if it's too complicated, we can just leave
Well,
them
I don't think it's complicated by, if all of these 3 chapters are adopted by at the same time by the city council, then whether they're in one chapter or another doesn't make any, it's not gonna be a technical or procedural problem. If you think it's better in one chapter than another, I would probably tend to defer to you on that. But you're also saying that whether they're in this chapter or in a different chapter, you're thinking that you need to just kind of look at them to see how can we, if we want to keep these overlay standards, you're talking about doing something with them to make them more attractive.
Yeah, if we're gonna have them, we need to figure out how do we incentivize a developer to use them, because right now we have a form-based code that has no minimum standards that you were talking about before, so why would you go with a overlay with this other overlay? Because what are you being? Most cases, you're not really gaining it unless there's some kind of incentive to do so, right? So.
What
we need
was,
to figure out.
can you or Olivia explain to us what was these were these were adopted at the same time the original code was, is that right?
Except for the conservation subdivision, which we were proposing to add.
What was the idea
Behind,
by having these overlaid?
I think they were, well, I think Libby probably could answer better than I could on the original ones. The conservation subdivision is, should we annex into these areas that you were just talking about on Ladies Island or, all the way up to the Whale Branch? If there's a property owner that wants to conserve property, we'd have a use type, an overlay type that would allow them to do so. And so that was kind of the idea, that it could make that more attractive to them. Whether anybody uses it or not, I don't know, but I'll defer to Libby on.
Bladen Street was just to make that particular street was to try to make it
Bladen Street, I
mixed
think,
use.
was to try to incentivize development at the time, that was I guess, boundary in Bladen, from what I understand, and I'll again defer to that, there was a desire to have direct investment to those, two streets to those two corridors because at the time it was felt that they needed some investment. So and obviously the thought was is that a public process is, creates a lot more uncertainty and a lot more time, money, right? And so they delineated those two as, something that
What was the other one besides Bladen?
Blade and Boundary Street. And that's
Did-
how some of the stuff happened. So, and it seems like council wants to keep those, as a, redevelopment.
Well, and they seem to have been really successful. Was it as a result of these overlay districts?
Say again.
What was the development success along Bladen and Boundary largely a consequence of these overlay district standards?
Well, I don't know if that's the case or they just worked hand in hand.
Yeah,
One of the big differences in those overlay district, those two, Bladen and Boundary, is that the projects didn't go through, didn't come to the design review board. They were done at the staff level.
oh, I see.
Or the HRB in the
Yeah,
case of the.
right.
Broad Street.
Well, no, not Bladen. That was sort of, but anyway, they were still done at the staff level. But yeah, it was an incentive to, and they were the original sort of form-based codes before the whole code sort of became form-based. So,
I mean, Bladen turned out to be a pretty nice street. I mean, you might have a building or two that you don't have, you have a problem with, but I mean, I walk down that every day and it seems like, I mean, the decade I've lived here, I've seen really transform a lot, it seems. And Boundary, I think Boundary looks so much better than before I moved here.
right, it's
Huh?
the street, yeah, particularly the roadway.
The roadway
mhm, yeah, it was-
and I mean, just the replacement of some pretty nasty old buildings along it. I mean, it's the entrance to our city now and it looks so much better.
Well, you can see that in both cases, when you gave a waiver or you reduce some of the approval process and Boundary Street also doesn't require TIAs, et cetera, right?
Right.
Definitely, it's produced development. It's whether in some of their cases, whether it's development you wanted, right? Because I think there's been some controversy on some of it. So I think as you're looking at these overlays, you can see we probably, if you tweak them to reduce or promote things, investment may occur. It's just there has to be, that has to be in the code. That has to be in the overlay or else they just sit and they're not used. If that makes sense. Since these other overlays are for really the whole city and, they can be like the TND district. I think that's what she's talking about. So they just haven't been used because there's no incentive.
Okay.
But would it be helpful to consider an overlay district for an area such as the Northwest Quadrant?
The Northwest Quadrant sort of already has an overlay. They have their own specific, if you remember the non-contributing, contributing discussion,
Mhm.
there's already a Northwest Quadrant design manual and it's just for the Northwest Quadrant. And so it has reduced standards to the rest of the historic districts. So that's already been kind of done. The way they did the code, it was the non-contributing kind of was meant for the Northwest Quadrant, I think, from what I understand. Even though not all the non-contributor in the Northwest Quadrant, but that was the idea. So.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Is there anything else we should add, work on, that you'd like to work on?
Why don't we go to chapter 3 here for a minute? We did talk about 2 there. See if there's anything anybody wants to ask questions about relative to chapter 3.
Well, on the subject of overlay districts, I had mentioned to Kurt, was there any interest in removing the option to do a PUD? Because the traditional neighborhood, we call them TN, I can't even remember, traditional neighborhood development, traditional neighborhood development, yeah. The TND option that's in the code currently, that was to basically takes the place of the old PUDs. I always think a PUD is a write your own zoning ordinance. It's a do-it-yourself zoning ordinance. The TND option puts some basic standards in place for that. So it allows flexibility in particularly, use standards, more of mixed use kind of situation, the Habersham, whatever, New Point examples or certain well-known ones. So allows those to occur without rezoning. So it's set up as a floating overlay so that really, that's all done at the planning commission level. You don't have to go to city council and have a rezoning. It's all done as part of the planning commission review. So that's to expedite that, but it's, Kurt said it really has not been used. I'm just guessing it's sort of buried in there and everything else. Maybe people didn't even know it was there, but, anyway, there's sort of three categories, 10 to 15 acres, 40 to 100 acre projects, and 100 acre or larger. And 100 acre or larger, you have to do it according to the current code. You have to plan diversity of lot sizes, that kind of thing.
Is this at section 2.8.3? Is that where your traditional
Yes.
neighborhood development floating
Yeah.
overlay?
So that's moved now to 3. So,
Yeah.
so that's the new PUD. But there was, the council kept the old PUD in there, the right to your own zoning ordinance. And I just didn't know if that's something that still needs to be in there. Do we want to encourage new PUDs? The county, for whatever that, if it matters. And I think Port Royal no longer have PUD, they don't allow new PUDs. Certain legacy PUDs are still there, but it's just they've decided, no, we're not going to go with new PUDs. We're doing something different instead. They're traditional neighborhood development. And the county has a very similar sort of situation. And Port Royal, I think now has moved to that as well. So anyway, that was just some food for thought. Do we want to eliminate the option for new PUDs?
Yeah, I didn't know this was here, until, reviewing this chapter, and I do like this better than the PUD.
Well, we can look at it. As I mentioned to you, there is one development that you've seen like a year ago that is unique and is zoned as a form-based code district, and that probably the PUD makes a lot of sense for because,
Which one are you talking about?
I mean, I don't want to talk
Are you
about.
talking about these legacy developments?
Well, it's a older development that somehow got zone T4 when it came into the city. And I mean, you're probably going to hear it here in another few months. They're probably going to come forward with a PUD request for rezoning.
Could it not come under the we have this optional, the TND floating district?
I think the problem is the uses because it's a golf course and.
Well, here's the thing,
trying to
we don't,
serve the golf course don't
Yeah.
work with the TND. district,
that's
so
true. Here's the thing,
The problem.
I like the idea of having these, we don't have to approve them, it gives somebody the option to come up with a design and convince us that, it's worthy of our consideration, but doesn't mean that we have to like it, and so I'd like to give people the flexibility to design things. What I particularly don't like is these legacy ideas. So in the future, if they come forward to us with a plan, I think we might end up looking at it where there's going to be a trigger date earlier than 25 years down the road, which is what we have with some of these developments. Like we're going, what is that? And they go, well, they got approval of that 25 years ago and they're just now finally getting around to it. And yet traffic is, what it is, and we can't consider that. And, that is kind of, in my mind, put sort of a cloud over some of those because they were able to lock in their entitlements with no anticipation of ever doing anything,
Well, that's a
you know?
development agreement
Hmm?
and the
Well,
PUD
they-
goes forever, right? So.
No, the zoning may go
Off-
forever, but if there's an expiration date on the plan, then, it's like a zoning. A zoning is never gonna revert to something else. But the plan approvals, we tied them down now with expiration dates on things so that if they don't implement it, then they gotta come back with a new discretionary review with that plan. And if we say it requires a new TIA, it requires a new TIA.
Well, that's what we could
know.
do. I mean, I haven't seen a PUD except for like really odd things in my career since, I was in Borea County. I mean, I haven't seen a new PUD come forward in any jurisdiction except for like really odd things, right?
Isn't that what they're doing? Oh, those things. that
They, I mean, they used to be the common
Hardyville
development
and
type.
stuff, Aren't we hearing?
Yeah, they've got a lot of PUDs in Hardyville,
Whole bunch
but,
of
you know, maybe that's one thing we can think about is, you know, you're not just approving the whole PUD, that it, you know, maybe that, if you want to keep the PUD, maybe it has some like triggers that, you know, you don't get a vested right in anything but like the uses. We could maybe do that.
I mean, yeah,
So-
there are things we can put,
So you keep some flexibility, or maybe we just get rid of it. It's up to you. I'm just, I just know that we do have one situation where I don't know what else. We've talked about it for a long time. I don't know what else to recommend them,
well, we'll look forward to seeing it, you know,
Sure.
seeing what they come up with.
because it probably never, it should never have been zoned what it got zoned, right? It shouldn't have, so. And I don't know why it did, but what they're wanting to do is, you know, there's just, you've turned it down, last year, so, you know, I don't know what else they can do besides this, so. The only relief I think I can think of, so. But yeah, maybe we look at that and maybe that's a compromise to protect us, you know, if we have this option available, maybe it's, you know, we're not just giving them all the setbacks and all of the plans, you know, up front forever in the PUD. Maybe it has a time limit. Maybe that's.
Right.
Okay, we can look at that. Anything else for chapter 3? We're at in the artisan district, kind of clarifying the townhouses or row homes, clarifying the indoor and outdoor entertainment. Some changes to inns and motels, some changes, actually minor change to bed and breakfast, but maybe that'll change a little bit more. Major
Yeah,
changes
why
would
don't we
be
ask
animal.
you just about that bed and breakfast thing is, you know, some of the bed and breakfasts that we have, they provide dinner.
Yeah,
and
there was
they're-
a concern.
Some
you
of
don't
them
have
are
to follow
open,
it.
open to the public, for example, when we were over there for, movies at the, uh, yeah, Red House the other night, the guy, said, you know, it's always open in the evening for cocktails, you know, come on by. you
There's
know.
been some concern about that.
And it's like, why not? You know, and then he was talking about maybe doing, I shouldn't say what he's planning, but he told us with that night, but I was thinking, you know, some of these are lovely ideas. Why would we want to limit it to breakfast only? Just curious.
I
I'm
mean,
just-
I know there's just a lot of controversy over right now, so,
Is there?
I mean, there's just been people who have complained about it,
Some
so.
people don't like it.
So.
Well, that'll be one.
You're
that-
saying they've complained to the planning department?
Yeah.
Huh.
There's just a concern that it's allowing too much, you know, that they basically are allowed, you know, they're operating events and dinners and, you know, it should be bed and breakfast only, right? They're bars essentially, so. there's
So
not-
what is the source of the complaint? Is it a traffic issue or a noise issue or?
I think it's all of the above, so, but
Well,
you
there's-
don't have to take.
But
a
this
recommendation.
guy I was talking to, one of the owners the other night, he said it's a very challenging business. And they've got to find some new revenue sources to make these things more viable. Last thing we want them to do is go out of business.
Mhm.
Then it becomes a boarding house. Yeah, because that's one of the great things we have downtown is these lovely, you know, B and Bs.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard any complaints, so it's
I haven't either.
interesting to me
Mhm.
that you're telling us you get a bunch of complaints.
I
So-
just, the only change I made was to change it to breakfast only, just to, but if you don't feel. like
Yeah, I'll
you
be
need
interested.
to,
I probably.
If you don't feel like you need to, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a minor thing, so
I
it doesn't
probably
matter
look
to
for
me.
more flexibility if we need anything, just to
But like,
Remove that.
keep the
uh,
option viable.
If that's the will of I'll just remove that. The big things were, the self-storage category and the animals and animal hospitals and kennels, kind of removing those, making them their separate category. I mean, I think, I don't know how they feel, but, you know, I don't think animal hospitals and kennels make a lot of sense in like T5UC or T4 for
Mhm,
that matter.
mhm.
And right now, it's not really clear, but they can definitely be in T5UC. So I don't know that you want a kennel in an urban setting next to a apartment, you know, a foot away. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And there's one I walk by oftentimes, and the dogs are always barking, and I'm always wondering, does anybody live behind it? 'Cause,
Yeah.
oh, boy, did I hear.
So we would make that its own use, which it is in most every zoning district in the
Mhm.
country, but for some reason in ours, it's not. And then the other thing is self-storage. Right now, you can do self-storage even in T5 UC, right? Which we did over at the Buford. What are they calling that? They were calling it, I can't remember. It was off Rebo Station, right? That's what it's called. That was the bowling alley. That's actually T5 UC, if you remember.
Yeah, that,
They had to do a lot of things for it, but at the same time, T5 UC is like the prime real estate of the city, prime both from taxable revenue to employment, to housing, to commercial. And, the thought was, should we just move this to RMX and a light industrial where it could be more suitable and, make the T5 UC kind of,
Yeah, it's about moving the storage units to the,
to those and
Mhm.
clarifying that it's, basically making its own use and then making sure that it's a use in those areas like the RMX, which is more of a suburban, commercial. And LI where I wouldn't, would be consistent with what LI is.
the one thing about the storage, a couple of things, because I've represented a lot of these, is that, number one, you'd be surprised how well, we sort of learned that with the bowling alley. You can make them where you don't even know it's a storage facility through design. Number two is that they are low traffic generators. So in an area where you have got a lot of traffic, when a storage facility comes in, you're assured of one thing, and that's there ain't gonna be a lot of traffic. And they're also been really good to taking these old facilities like a bowling alley, which has been more than one of those, been converted over time to storage. And like the theater across on Ladies Island
At the high school.
by the high school, it's hard to do anything with a whole movie theater, and I don't know what the zoning district is there. But that ended up being a good use
It
for
might
that.
be T5 UC, but
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the drawback is that people are upset that those have been converted into into use that doesn't really have any taxable revenue or employment
Well,
or
it's better than a vacant
because
building.
the cost to build one of those is
Yeah.
high and we have no movie theater or bowling alley. So, and now they're storage forever because it's very profitable.
But
So,
another.
that's the
Yeah.
devil's
Yeah,
advocate.
there's two sides to that coin, but the other place was in Dick Stewart's former Kmart
Yeah,
building.
yeah, sure.
He got some retail storefronts out of it, but he also got some storage out of it. And that was a pretty down and out center, not too long ago. And, I just throw it out there that sometimes it's it's certainly better than a vacant use and through design, you can make just about anything work.
it's useful because I have a storage unit.
Oh, you do?
So it's something to think about. I mean,
Yeah.
we can just make it a little more clear, I think, if you want to keep it the way it is. But, you would not be specifying the
I
district.
think a lot of our answers to problems can be resolved through design,
They can be, sure.
The only issue, well, to me, one of the issues with the self-storage is that, I mean, you said it doesn't generate, it's true, it doesn't generate a lot of traffic, but it doesn't generate a lot of people either. So if you're trying to activate a corridor, we
right.
want people and restaurants and shops and activity, that's like a killer right in the middle. So that kind of thing. So that can be the downside.
That's right.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing, can we at some point talk about with the use table, I'm sorry, I'm behind this curve here, but in terms of the 2 and 3 unit dwellings and maybe 3 and 4, I thought maybe we were going to try to sort of up the game a little bit on the T3S and the T3N by moving them up, let's say an increment in terms of what's allowed in those districts. Was there any thought about doing that or?
I think we were, and then with all of the
What do you mean?
concerns
moving it up?
about
Well, in other
everything.
words, most of the city is zoned, let's say, for single-family development,
Yeah.
and a lot of communities now are moving away from that, saying we need to encourage diversity for a lot of different reasons in terms of housing types, options, and we need more housing, and anyway, that kind of a thing. So in T3N, we allow the 2 and 3 unit dwelling, but only in very limited circumstances, I think on a corner, or maybe there may be maximum 2 per block with alley access in the back. So sometimes in these code updates, you'll say, okay, that's been working, okay, now we need to move to the next level, and you'll say, okay, and T3N will allow, let's say, more, to remove those conditions and allow 2 and 3 dwelling units, let's say, by right in the T3N.
Yeah.
With conditions about parking and that kind of thing. And now say, well, maybe in T3S, we'll allow 2 and 3 dwelling units options, but only on corners, and sort of move those conditions from the T3N to T3S. But I mean, communities nationwide are moving away from strictly single family only zoning. I mean, some places the state has said, sorry, it's going away. You know, we can't handle that. So it's just something to be about in these what are currently just single family only zones. The whole city.
Yep, I think we're just looking for your direction. As you can see, we're changing a lot of the design standards for,
This would be a big
Row
move,
homes and
but
stuff.
it would be a big move.
but
I
it
think
is a
it's
little
something-
controversial,
Yeah.
so. that's
I think it works particularly well
Go back.
in new developments within an existing zone like that. But sometimes in an already developed area where somebody just all of a sudden, you got all single family homes, and now some guy wants to turn his house into a duplex. It's like,
Oh.
but I mean, it kind of just changes the neighborhood from what everybody else kind of bought into. You know,
Right.
and it can particularly, I'm not saying it would be problematic where I live. If the neighbor decided she wanted to turn her big house into a duplex, it doesn't make any difference to me. But, there are some neighborhoods where that could be, could definitely be detrimental to the neighborhood. And, just some marginal neighborhoods that are barely hanging on. And I'd hate to make it rougher for those neighborhoods. See what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, it raises some of the same issues as the accessory dwelling unit
Yeah,
issues. But maybe in the case of turning your house into a duplex without even building anything.
yeah.
Paul Trask's point that he's made a number of times is these accessory dwelling units are a great way to bring more housing in the area at an affordable price. That's true, but it also comes with, even if the ADU is, or the units are used for long-term occupancy, there's traffic, there's, noise, there's, all the things that happen as you make a particular area more dense.
I just think of certain examples, in my neighborhood in Hermitage, there's a lot that's on Hermitage Road. It's at the corner of Hermitage and the rail trail, and there had been a little house there and it was demolished. Actually, the lot has frontage on, Hermitage, and it goes all the way back to, is it Reynolds? Anyway, so this lot to me calls out for like a duplex or even a triplex. It's right there on the rail trail. It could have, one of the units could face the rail trail, one could face the front street. It's could be accessed from the rear in terms of the parking. But all they can do on this big lot is one house. And it's just,
Yeah, I get it.
I just
Yeah.
think.
Could they subdivide the lot?
Probably.
They try, it's, I mean, a little bit problematic in terms of what's required for the access on Reynolds Street, if that's the rear street. It's just, if we're trying to get more housing, more residents, more neighbors, more activity, we've got these lots, they're big, they've got street access, they've got water and sewer, they've got everything that it's just if we allowed a little more flexibility in terms of.
Well, and maybe
So-
maybe we regulate that in terms of lot size. And, maybe, I'm just throwing out, I mean, certain lot size in a neighborhood like that. Where it can't be a smaller lot, but it can be a larger lot. Where you're just not cramming too much in, or where it's new construction as opposed to just putting up a wall and an extra door in an existing house.
Just can't force all our new residents to live at the periphery. I
agree.
just think, we need to embrace comers and new compatible new development. And I think with design standards and
What's your
thoughtful
direction?
review.
I think we have one person that's very strong on one thing, and I think I've heard.
I think the rest of it just sort of
Everybody else
depends.
is
I think that my view is that you can accommodate what Libby's saying through good design. And but not allowing, you know, just automatically for everybody to turn their single family house into
Yeah, I mean,
a triplex.
that could be a issue.
Her spot she's talking about has only been zoned.
I know, but,
It's
That has to be
controversial.
adjusted.
so that we'd have to adjust, yeah.
Yeah, you know, down on Bladen Street, there's one corner, Bladen and Duke, where sign up with, it's showing the three houses on the corner.
Oh, yeah. Paul Trask. has that.
Falls right
Yeah.
across from Pilates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my career, if I may say, you know, I know this is, the planning field is really big on this, is, you know, it's the existing neighborhoods and there's you know, it just creates a controversial situation where people feel like they're being invaded by density that didn't exist. I think we do have the ADU. So I think you just have to think, what do you want to do? Because the second you allow it, some people are going to start doing this kind of thing. And so you feel that's fair for those existing neighborhoods in Mossy Oaks and Thousand Oaks and whatever.
I mean, could we maybe make T3S conditional, similar to T3N? Where, you know, you just allow it, like what Libby was saying, like, was it in corners and stuff? So there's like a little bit of like incremental increase.
Well, I think that lot size is very important, particularly like in the 100 Pines area where they have those big, long lots, lots of them. And to me, that's an ideal area for the type of thing that Libby is talking about. It doesn't have the water views and so forth, but it, you know, it certainly has space.
Could be a special exception. That was kind of your idea before. That's the
That'd be a
specific.
start. I mean,
Specific standards, or it could be, as Benji's saying, you know, just corner lots would be a conditional use with design standards. Or you just don't change. I mean, it's one of the three.
I think if you have special
Let's talk about
standards,
it.
you have minimum, you know, not every lot within a T3 is gonna be the same size. So if you allowed it on certain larger lots, maybe corner lots, you know, I wouldn't want to create any exceptional uses for a zoning adjustment, because it may just approve anything.
You could say existing lots over like 10,000 square feet. That would be a nice lot that could easily accommodate something like that, or corner lot. Do that.
the corner lots are ideal because of the access. You can have the driveway coming in from the side street. So that saves a lot of, you know, worry about what it's going to look like from the front, and
Right.
all the vehicular stuff can be in the back, so.
And I mean, the way you argue this is, it creates political tension. So yeah, you would say, that, you know, of course, all the new subdivisions all have restrictive covenants that wouldn't
Right.
really allow you to do this. But your existing neighborhoods is where you'd have the issue. So, you know, I'm just, so we can do something limited. We can do, just, it's up to you. We can talk about it next time. We can think about it. I can come with options.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, I think all three options make a lot of sense. I can do something.
Yeah, I think we need to do something.
We'll have like four options, like special exception, lot size, corner lot, and then do nothing. What's that?
Sounds good.
All right, was there any, and then the split use, split zone, you know, that's probably a big thing. This is, you had to pick one, and if it's next to an urbanized lot, you gotta do an urbanized zoning or a T5 UC, I mean. Or you also can make a recommendation when you do that to city council that they rezone. You look at the map and maybe in a few months, the recommendation that, you know, the planning commission and the city council have like a joint meeting, and everywhere we have RMX T5 UC, you pick one. You could do that too. But
Yeah, that's just a really odd thing. Be nice to get rid of it.
But we gotta do something. This is the idea, is that you gotta pick one, and if it's next to an urbanized, you know, kind of.
Like
box-
pick one and then that's it
That's it.
forever.
That's
No,
it.
no picking again when it changes
right.
hands.
Unless they always have the right to go through a zoning change application, but, you know, you're in one or the other for purposes of what code
That's right.
provisions
One code.
you're under. Yeah.
And as we mentioned, like Buford Station and the hotels up on 21 are both situations where the developer picked à la carte from the two for whatever development standard they wanted as they were developing. So that's not a good, that's not a good way to do things. So,
The intention either.
yeah, so
No.
we want to stop that from happening. Because it doesn't
Write it
produce a
down.
very good result, so. Okay, if that is okay with chapter 3, if there's anything else, we can.
We can look at chapter 4 here for a second. This is where you're gonna come up with, some design ideas, some
This is where we're gonna try to add the vernacular kind of
Yeah.
low country, but also this is where the harmony kind of, we're adding to that. I think to what Libby was talking about. I added some different, basically building types, but she was referencing that Fort Wells kind of split it up even further. But I also added a lot of design requirements to every single use type, as you can tell from what we have, so. Try to add that vernacular to each one of them. Instead of doing separate design guidelines for the whole city. Also, important things to note that Paul Trask, and this has come up with the city council, when this came to city council a year and a half ago. There's a 250-foot from any significant intersection requirement that has to be 2-story for a liner building or any building. I think Paul thinks that that's too much because he's had to build like false stories that don't have, and like the McDonald's per se and the Five Guys. He thinks maybe it should just be the corner, I think, or should we do that? We talked about that with Metters and, we were seeing maybe there's like an alternative where you can like activate the pedestrian nature of maybe outside of the corner, with like a patio or something like that, where, we see a lot of examples where those look pretty good. So we're gonna think about that, but that's something that's come up. Do you want to do it? And we're recommending, should you do a 2-story liner building? And we thought maybe you should, if you're gonna do a liner building, so, but we're gonna change the one, then we can't change the other, so that's something to think about.
I mean, I've heard from clients forever about, because this is not new to Beaufort, I mean, all over the country. Various purveyors of form-based codes have tried to do this, and it's just very, very hard to lease those upper units, especially on these commercial corridors. Just the McDonald's turned out fine, because oftentimes when you get a real busy McDonald's, they like to have an extra space. It's turned out where
They roped it out.
they
so.
put, what did they do there? Do you go upstairs there?
They permanently, actually, we approved the building plans, they permanently blocked it off. You
Oh,
can't
so
do it.
they don't use, I just assumed that people were sitting up there, because I've been in some where.
It was a year ago, I changed it a year ago.
Oh, goodness. Well, then there's, for example, there's this tire store or something just down the street there a little bit that, what do they do in their second story?
Oh, that's the living quarters for the daughter of the owner of the
Oh.
tire store.
Is it actually, or just that?
No, actually, it's
No.
her living.
So
Doesn't sound very.
Just before I was here, they approved
Where's
it,
this
but
tire?
is it a tire store or what is it? It's just.
yeah, it's like a tire break store, but I wasn't here, but I understand their daughter lives above. in the-
Well, he got lucky, he found somebody, but I mean, I don't wanna live above a tire store.
Kind of space you'd have to rent to a family member, right?
Yeah.
They love tires. in that family.
But it almost, yeah, it's just,
Well, what's the purpose of having that 2-story requirement that Paul's talking about?
Well, I think the architects are activating all these significant intersections, making more urban in nature.
trying to make them look
Make more,
more traditional town look. But particularly when you get outside,
Outside the town, yeah.
particularly when you get past Robert Smalls Parkway on Boundary.
That's
when it
another way to
becomes
look
Grant
at it.
Parkway, it really looks out of character. But worse than that is, remember when we had somebody come in for a car wash or something, and we were trying to figure out a way that he could put some office space or in front of that thing, and it
no,
just,
that was,
we were giving him all sorts of ideas, and it
They
blew his
abandoned.
mind, and he
Didn't want to do it.
He didn't want
What
to
the
do
hell
it,
am I gonna do with
and
it?
he never came back. And it's just really tough, but Paul's obviously looking at it in part because he's got a whole center there that's still got a lot of stuff left to be built. And it would be nice to have that completely finished out and not left vacant because, you know, you can't find tenants for the upper floors. So maybe, you know, Benji can think about it and tell us, you know, there's gotta be other design ways to make those outlots or liner buildings look as attractive without forcing them to put a apartment above it.
Yeah, we were exploring with Metters, like they were bringing up some areas in like Mount Pleasant where, you know, maybe we require them to have like a patio or something like that, you know, like really activates the pedestrian urban nature of it.
Like part of the restaurant.
Part of, yeah.
You mean a
Yeah.
patio,
Well-
not a patio on top of the building. You're
No,
talking-
no, no, just to do, you could maybe
Like
just
a
do
cafe
first
kind of
floor if you have certain
Mhm.
requirements, like you have a patio or you have like an activated space in front of it. That looks okay, but
Yeah.
you know, but I do think having the corners, significant corners, and maybe we scale back how many significant intersections we are, you know, where is our urban area start? It's just, you do set a tone, you know, at those corners and, you know, should it be 250 feet? These are all things we got to think about, so.
It's a very significant intersection, or it could be. I mean, it's almost like the corner of Main and Main, you know, or it could be. And I think that was sort of the intention or the hope that eventually it could be. I mean, I do understand the issue and, you know, from reading about how it's so difficult to, well, harder, more expensive to build the second story and then to keep it going. But another reason I think is these taller buildings at the intersection, it's so wide. I mean, it's just so big. And so having a little taller, you know, more substantial structure on these intersections sort of helps, well, anchor and also frame it. But that intersection is so wide. Also, I mean, same situation and you sort of encounter over on Ladies Island at the intersection of Sea Island Parkway and Ladies Island Drive now that when you come over the bridge and you're coming up 21 and the Harris Teeter, that vacant space there, it's just this like massive, anyway, you know, just sea of cars, asphalt, parking, whereas buildings on corners help anchor things. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly not,
Well, there's
I
gonna be,
understand the issue about the.
They're
two
gonna be
stories, so
building-
Scaling it back.
there are gonna be buildings on his corner there. It's just a question of whether you have to put something, an occupiable space on the second floor, or whether you could have a structured building that just has, you know,
Well, right now, it doesn't say it has to be occupied,
Well, is the liner building
just to look
supposed
like
to,
it's occupied.
no, it just has to be a second story.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so.
So I'm just saying, if you could have it
Mezzanine.
structured to be as tall as as a two-story building, but doesn't necessarily have to
But
have
that's,
which is
that's the way the code is now.
yeah.
So these are all things I think you need to think about, but we're gonna try to figure out, we talked about it, and we think that if you can activate pedestrian space, at least maybe 250 feet is too much, and maybe it's just the corner, the building's right up on the corner, or maybe not, or maybe you have to pick an option. There has to be like activated pedestrian space or something, right? You know,
Or,
we're gonna try to figure that out.
or just the idea of of a taller building with.
Taller
with
building, sure.
Architecture going up, you know, to the whole facade.
Building with an
but it-
atrium and-
Yeah, but it isn't necessarily, you know, a space that's built for occupancy that you can't ever occupy.
You do that. You can also think about, you know, what are the significant intersections? Where do you feel like this should apply? Maybe reduce them, expand them?
I mean, is the purpose of the liner building really to hide the parking lot and
Yeah.
the uses behind it? I mean,
And to make a more pedestrian oriented
Right.
corridor.
Which is all nice. Those
I
are
mean,
good,
it's just-
those are good ideas.
the architects.
Those are good ideas.
Exactly.
They're good.
But you know, there's other ways you can do that besides just height, so.
what about a
Isn't that high?
landscaping option instead of a liner building?
That's probably not one of them.
It's not?
I mean, it could be.
I like the, I
But
like.
we're doing that for all the
like the
major
liner
corridors now with the,
Yeah.
you approved all that with the buffer area. So this is really kind of just getting into those urban areas. We'll just have to do a deep dive on this, the work session. We'll just have to reserve like at least
I mean,
an hour for a work
yeah.
session to talk about this, because I think it's a big deal, so.
I mean, the traditional old shopping center was like the Kmart Center. You know, you just a U-shaped or an L-shaped building and a big, extra big field of parking that's filled up at Christmas time. And then when, Buford Station was done, you know, it's actually pretty damn nice looking, you know, other than a few complaints here and there about taking out too many trees and stuff. But I mean,
A few.
Yeah.
But I just still think, you know, the parking, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there once Aldi opens on the 31st. Because
they'll find, they wouldn't be opening. if-
And again,
Yeah.
that's a situation where they picked and choose the parking requirements. They
That's-
used the parking of RMX or of T5 UC for some of it. And, but they built in an RMX fashion, right? And they use the design standards for RMX. The T5 UC parking standards are like half for most uses of RMX, because the thought is you had urban street parking. Well, it doesn't exist there, but they were allowed to use it. So that's the problem.
They-
didn't we increase parking requirements for grocery stores?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, which is good, but the Aldi was before that, obviously.
You'll almost never find a user like that voluntarily underparks. You know, I mean, and so I'm not worried about them not having enough parking space.
But to Kevin's point, if you go over there at Christmas, I know when it opened at Christmas, it was
Well, then they're gonna
a
flow over.
circle to find a park.
I don't think it's just Christmas. I think Aldi's going to be very popular. I think that they don't have very many parking spots that are right next to it.
Well, then they're gonna flow over into the rest of the parking.
Well,
lot.
they're going to do that, but the parking is already crowded for a good part of that whole development. Luckily, PetSmart, which is close to Aldi,
They don't,
that tends to be low.
there's not much there,
But
yeah.
still, I think that, you know, we're going to see issues. as far
Well,
as right
it's
when it opens.
approved. There's nothing we can do about it, so.
They do have bike racks, right? So you can bike to.
They do have bike racks. I've never seen a bike in them.
And they're right off the Spanish Moss Trail too. So I could ride to that from my.
Yeah.
Oh, can I? No,
I've ridden my bike to go grocery shopping at the new Publix, you know.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
up the
it's not
trail.
bad. You've done it, haven't you?
Trail,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go up there for a couple of items and.
Yeah.
You have like a big basket on your bike?
Where I put my backpack.
Well, I think we got some items that we'll do like a deeper dive on, so this will be one of them, liner building / two-story requirement. Lot diversity, design diversity, in certain, like type of setting, that'll be one. And I think we'll also do one on, what was the other thing that we were talking a lot about? Oh, yes, the T3S. Kind of increasing density centers, we'll give you some options on that. And so, does that sound good? Is there anything else that's coming up that just you all want to work on, that you want to spend some time on? Oh, and the TND, floating overlay, we'll have to spend some time on that, so
And the PUD, we'll look at that.
maybe I could even send on your agenda like a schedule where it has like, you know, we're doing like Whitehall, it could have like an hour for one, an hour for another, to kind of keep you on track.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to work on that Benji? Anything?
I can't think of anything.
Libby, you got anything that can?
I was just thinking, about, you just mentioned about, I don't know, holiday gathering. What about, I mean, in terms of these different kind of building types, what about going to Habersham and having a little walking tour?
Oh, that's a
Coming
good one.
around and seeing, I mean, that I would say is a good example of sort of a mixing of a very compatible, attractive mixing of different building types or uses, the single family, the mansion apartments, the row houses. I don't know. I mean, maybe everybody's been there and understands how the concepts and all, but I don't know. I just thought that might be interesting as a group to go out and
Yeah, it might be cool and be able to go inside and check out some of the spaces, if that's something that could be arranged.
I think there's a connection that you can work through.
No, I have left a lot of my money in those shops there at Habersham over the time, yeah. A lot.
Like the concept of Habersham.
If you like, I
Think about
mean,
that.
our next work session
Far
is in
away.
2 weeks, so, just think about that, what you want to do for a
I mean, it's far enough.
holiday
away,
thing.
it's
We
still
could
cool.
do a tour, or we could do like we
Yeah,
did last time.
Very close.
And what days would you be available?
That we're
That's
going to see them, you
We'll
know,
talk about it at our,
to go there.
fine. Yeah, if you want to do like a lunch tour or a dinner thing out there and
I
meet.
don't know,
have a
maybe,
time.
yeah, a lunch thing, and then after lunch, go
Yeah,
take a little stroll around, work it off with a,
definitely when there's daylight, yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
all right, with that, unless there's anything else, are you all ready to call it quits for the night? If so, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
All right, no objection, we'll call this meeting adjourned.
Sure.